I'm lining up against the former Stig.
Go!
Oh yeah! No way!
In this episode of Hot or Not, we're seeing red. We're going to check out the new Honda SI and the new Type R. Now, these cars represent relative bargains in the performance world these days. Yes, they're both front-wheel drive, but they're very good at being front-wheel drive, and the best thing about it to me is they do really good lap times and they have manual transmissions. So let's see how they compare. We've run both of these cars in the past. I'm really curious to see how this new Type R and the SI perform on the track today. So in this video, we'll kind of look under the hoods and check the suspension, wheels, tires, and brakes of the car. We'll do a lap, a hot lap, of course, with me driving of the SI. Then we'll do a drag race to kind of see how they line up. I think we know the answer to that one, but it's always fun to try. And then, of course, then we'll take the Type R around the track and see if it can beat its already very quick lap time. Under the hood of the SI, we've got a 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's not a very big car, so this engine with 205 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque is enough to give it some fun performance and sporty characteristics, and of course being part of the Earth Dreams Honda engine lineup, also be very efficient at the same time. Now let's take a look at the wheel, tire, and brake package on the SI. It's actually fairly basic stuff. For instance, on the brakes, we've got vented front discs, but in the rear, they're actually solid, so they're non-vented, which is fairly rare these days. We've got single-piece calipers, but they did put some money in the tire. We've got a Continental Extreme Contact tire. It's a 235/40/18. So as long as the brakes hold up, this should actually work pretty well around this track.
All right, 2020 Civic SI, 1.5 liters of Turbo Fury, about to hit the track. You get a lot more wheel spin off the line than you do in the Type R. A little more laggy. Of course, it's a much smaller engine. Suspension quite a bit softer. Brake pedal feels good, not as quick as the Type R or the medium. Shorter second gear. So the gearing's shorter overall. Kind of a good amount of understeer as you would expect. It's a good little car, probably a little bit too soft for real performance driving. I would have more fun in a GTI in this situation. I think the lap times are probably pretty similar, but just from a feel perspective, where this car rolls around and kind of moves quite a bit. Not as buttoned down.
Ooh, I can smell this one a little.
Yeah, it works a lot harder, a lot smaller brakes and all that stuff. So,
well, I have some better news for you.
All right.
Yeah, check it out.
There we go, 108. So that's kind of where I would expect this car to land, which is, I believe, quicker than we did with the 17 car.
Yeah, it's about a second quicker, maybe.
Yeah.
.5. Wow.
So I could feel that. To me, thinking of this car, not in context with the Type R, which it doesn't really compete against, but like maybe like a GTI or something. It's a fun car, but this one's it's softer and kind of rolls more and a little less grippy. but the engine loves to rev, so it's fun, it's great with the manual. So it's actually a pretty fun driving experience and would be a really good car for, like, you know, just spirited back road driving as opposed to track driving.
Okay, but how does it do in a drag race?
Well, we'll find out.
All right, let's do it. So how do I always draw the short stick and have a professional driver like Paul in a Type R versus me in an SI, which has like 100 less horsepower? Oh geez, well, okay, it's for science, right? We want to figure out exactly the difference between these two cars. So how much acceleration do you get when you pay about $11,000 more for the Type R?
Now, if you want to come out to the track and try out a couple of red cars yourself and go for some lap times, you can come out here to IMI Motorsports Park and you can rent the track and be a part of the many different types of track day activities that they do out here, from motorcycles to cars to drifting to go-karts. And that's not all they have. They also have dirt bike capabilities as well with a full dirt bike track. So IMI is just a playground for playing in cars. So click the link below and come on out here and have some fun yourself.
I'm lining up against the former Stig. Oh yeah! No way!
Little SI hung in there.
I think I actually did good.
It hung in there, didn't it?
Yeah, it was
surprising.
It was not bad.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
I was in the fight against the Stig. Yes, dude. If that's all I can do, my life is complete.
Now, under the hood of the Type R, of course, now we bump up to a 2-liter turbo, and this engine makes 306 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. That's a lot of power for a front-wheel drive car, but as we saw in the past, Honda's fantastic suspension technologies, we'll talk about in a moment, easily puts the power down. Moving over to the wheel, tire, and brake package on the Type R, we've got Continental Sport Compact 6s, and they're in a 245/30, so ultra low profile, and a 20-inch rim. Now, one of the big changes for 2020 is going to the 2-piece rotor. Now, a 2-piece rotor uses an aluminum hat instead of a cast iron hat, so this saves a lot of unsprung weight. So you don't just get better brake performance, but you also get better handling because you've lowered the actual weight that's in the suspension system by chopping all that cast iron out and replacing it with aluminum. They also can expand and contract better because these rotors are semi-floating. So there's something, a little bit of race technology you see there. Of course, we move up to these big Brembos with 4-piston calipers, so pretty stout brake package. Now, what's kind of amazing about this is the rear brakes actually use a solid non-vented disc. To my knowledge, it's the first car I've ever seen that has such high-tech front brakes and such low-tech rear brakes. Now, of course, because this vehicle's front-wheel drive, there's not a lot of weight back there, so those brakes don't have to do a lot of work relative to these. But it's interesting to note that all you get back there is some red paint on the same old sliding caliper.
All right, we're in the 2020 Civic Type R. It's got some refinements, brakes, suspension, different ball joints, different bushing stiffnesses, all of that to make this car quicker, hopefully, around the track. It was already a very, very good front-wheel drive car. Let's see how it does. Go! Puts the power down really well, no torque steer to speak of, which is really nice. Loving the manual transmission, of course. Spinning the inside tire a little bit. A bit more understeer than I remember from the last car. Turns okay on the brakes. Engine is just howling, love that. Gotta really get your hands straight. understeer through there a lot more than I remember. So pretty good fun. I'd have to say it felt like it has a bit more understeer generally than I felt in the car before. It feels a bit more front wheel drive than it did before because of that understeer. And normal with front wheel drive cars, they're great getting into corners, but they really struggle sort of staying down low in the corner at the apex once you start rolling on the power, and then on the exit not running wide. And so I was kind of working against that the whole time, in reference to something like the Focus RS, which is all-wheel drive, and can kind of do all things, and really comes off the corners hard because it has all-wheel drive.
I usually like giving you good news, but not today.
Not today. 105/60, that's interesting, isn't it? It's very good, but it's definitely spinning the inside tire, and it's not putting power down as well coming off the corners as I remember the prior car doing.
All right, go for it.
Definitely front wheel drive. It's spinning the inside front tire there. Maybe not quite the grip, but it's reasonable.
Oh!
I don't know that that has anything to do with the suspension changes that have been made. I doubt they made it worse. They usually make it better. It might come down to the particular Continental tire that's on the car versus the Continental tire we had on the car before. Okay. But great car. Probably the best handling front wheel drive car on the market by far. Good enough that in a lot of cases it outhandles all wheel drive cars.
So, seeing red, we had a good time out there on the track. The cars were both very, very good, as you would expect from Honda, as a company that's really known for kind of developing cars to a further level of detail than a lot of manufacturers do, especially in the performance front-wheel drive side of things. I'd have to say the SI was a bit of a surprise in that it improved quite a bit over the car that I drove last. Always a nice little nimble car, you know, and anything's under 3,000 pounds these days, and this one's at 29 or so. That's a little car these days. It handled really, really well. The Type R came with a lot of promise. We've seen the improvements that they've done in the brakes, where we've got a two-piece caliper now. We've got some improvements in the aerodynamics. We've got improvements in the suspension. So lots of refinements as that car has kind of come to market over the last few years, and a bunch of them all splashing right now in 2020. But it still had, more so it seems than when I drove it in the past, front-wheel drive characteristics, which means a lot of, or more understeer than I'd like from sort of the apex out of the corner. So coming out of the corner, so mid-corner to exit, I was kind of finding it running wide. I remember the car that I drove prior seemed to put power down a little bit better. If you're looking at the 11K or so difference between an SI and a Type R, is it worth it? It's a completely different vehicle. It's so much more refined, better, higher performing. You know, not only is it more than a couple seconds a lap faster, but it just does all of it so much better. So the SI, fantastic daily driver, sporty little car, really fun on a back road kind of car. Type R, much more serious vehicle, still a great daily driver, but a lot more performance, bonkers engine, you know, with a lot more power and a great chassis to boot. Are they hot or not? Well, they're both red hot. I think when you look at them, again, if you look at them pricing wise, these cars are super competitive. So if you're looking at a compact, nimble, affordable, really great performance vehicle, whether it be more of a base model like an SI or a bonkers model like the Type R, they're both great values in the marketplace and highly recommend both of them.
But Paul, what if I want to learn how to drive better on the track?
Well, anonymous voice from the sky, that's a really good question. You could go to theoptimumdrive.com, or you could just go to Amazon and pick up my book, The Optimum Drive. Remember, I was the former Stig on Top Gear USA from 2008 to 2016. and love driving, and it's great to come out here and get to play. Come to TFL Car for news, views, and real-world red car reviews.